Grayson's Grades. Scott Grayson, 97.3 ESPN.com and Fox 29. He joins us now with another edition of Grayson's Grades as he's here. And, of course, you can check out Grayson's Grades after every Eagles game over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Scott Grayson, what's going on, man?
Hey, Mike, good to see you again.
Yeah, man, and a loss this week, so the grade's a little different from last week. The red pen was out a little bit more in week number 2 than we saw in week number 1. The grades are up right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. And let's really start with Nick Sirianni. I really feel like a lot of the fans are kind of pointing the finger at him, and he pointed the finger at himself. So you gave him a C, though. You thought that maybe he wasn't as bad as he even said that he was. C for Nick Sirianni. Explain.
Well, I just thought that things started out okay, and when you grade over the whole 4 quarters, to me, the fact that they started out well, and they really, quite frankly, I thought were kind of dominating the game in the first half up until the last couple seconds of it, really. And, I thought that really I liked his play calls. I liked the fact that he wasn't afraid to take a shot when he was pinned against the end zone. Coaches these days seem like they're just content to run 3 plays and punt as long as they can get past that 5-yard mark when they're in the shadows of their own goalposts. And I like the fact that he had a young quarterback and he wasn't afraid to try to take a shot deep. Went for 91 yards. Unfortunately, not any points off that drive. That I do blame him for. And I felt like that really was a turning point of the game. So when I looked at Sirianni, I felt like, look, early on, I thought he had his team ready to play with the energy of the crowd. They matched it. They moved the ball. They were controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball really early on. And then, as the game evolved, things changed, and he didn't really seem to change with them very well. So the goods, the bads together equaled to me about a C. Again, it's his second game as a head coach, calling all the shots. There were things I didn't like. I did not like the 4th and goal in the first half. Keep putting points on the board, and as long as you're putting points on the board, you're in turn pressuring the opponent. Even though putting a field goal up there would have just made it 6-0, it's another set of points that they have to try to answer instead of what they did, which was gave them momentum by holding them on 4th down and then going down the field and really turning it into a lead going into the locker room. So I didn't like that. I didn't like the play call. Don't run a trick play there. Don't go to the Philly special well again. I mean, what are we doing? And then the fact that there weren't the changes in the second half to really show that they could adapt. What they did well in Atlanta was they changed to what the game was going, and they put the foot on the throats of the Falcons. In this game, I saw no changes really that were working at all, and they weren't even, it looked like, trying to do anything really different. It just started to look stale, and that to me was a big difference from game 1.
All right, now you mentioned that you like the fact that they took some shots down the field. Did you think they took too many shots down the field? In other words, hey, it wasn't work. I thought they didn't utilize Ertz and Goddard enough in this game. I thought the middle of the field was maybe a little bit more open for them. So I thought Sirianni almost outthought. Like, it was almost like, hey, last week we didn't show anything down the field. Well, this week we're going to go over the top all day long. And it was, I felt it was like from one extreme to the next.
I didn't mind the shots down the field, but I agree with you. There wasn't the mix of the intermediate game as well. So it wasn't like there was that part of the game that they had to respect so that something deep could be open down the field. They did hit it with Rager. He stepped out of bounds. They hit it with Quez Watkins. They were trying to hit it with Devontae Smith, maybe 1 or 2 times downfield too far. At times, like once or twice, I did think that Devontae Smith had went through his progressions, and he thought it was the best of the worst case scenarios in the sense that everybody was kind of covered. So he took a shot with Devontae Smith, hoping that maybe he would draw a flag. Those flags didn't come in those instances. I wasn't a hater of it, but I did dislike the fact that your tight ends were working well for you last week. The middle of the field does seem to be there with this offense, with the personnel that it has, and they ignored that part of the field. So therefore, you didn't apply that kind of pressure on the 49ers that also then would have helped your running game a little bit as well in the second half. So I agree with you in the sense that the middle was left untouched. But I didn't mind a deep shot here or there, especially when you're playing in front of that home crowd and trying to get them going in a big way.
All right, now let's go to the quarterback. He obviously last week he was the talk of the town, was Jalen Hurts. This week didn't play nearly as well. I don't think he was horrible. You gave him a B.
Yeah, look, the biggest thing I want from Jalen Hurts is no turnovers. I also want his legs to be a factor when he needs them to, not to go to that well too often. I was pleased with what he did on the ground. I like the fact that, again, it seemed like he knew when he had to kind of get out of the pocket. There is still a learning curve going on there, and that's to be expected. Overall, I felt like, his completion percentage was not good. You got to complete more passes. You got to complete, and part of that could be, as to your point, too many shots downfield, low percentage completion attempt that didn't turn out to be completed, and therefore you're back to where you started from the previous down. You got to keep moving the ball down the field. They did a good job of that against Atlanta. They were doing a decent job of that early on, and I thought that they had good control of the line of scrimmage. They had good control of the running game at the time. And I was expecting more play action stuff, quite honestly, and even some RPO stuff to mix in to really keep that San Francisco defense at bay. And they didn't. They got away from all that stuff, quite frankly. And I don't know how much of that was Jalen checking out of plays and how much of that was Nick not calling them. But look, the biggest thing is, if Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the ball over, this team will be in every game. I think that should be expected. And then it's up to him to maybe make a play here and there. Again, he did. Jalen Reagor, well-thrown ball. Reagor's got to stay in bounds on that. That touchdown would have been huge. I don't know that game plays out the rest of the way it did if he does. So overall, I think Jalen Hurts showed some good signs of things, but he also showed that he's still a young quarterback, and he's got to work through that.
Yeah, I know that they would have been up. They could have been up 17-0. If the 4 downs on the 1 yard line, they can't get in. If they get points there, and then the Jalen Reagor happened before San Francisco got on the board, so they could have possibly been up 17-0. Now, this one I'm very surprised with because you gave Jonathan Gannon a D in the game. The defense gives up 17 points. Why a D for Jonathan Gannon?
Two big things are starting to stand out to me with that defense. I like the way, again, the game started. They were in Garoppolo's face. They were blowing up the run. They were winning the line of scrimmage on the defensive line, and all that just went away. And when this team really needed to get the ball back, it really needed to get an opportunity to try to get back in the game, they couldn't get the ball back. That San Francisco drive that lasted 9 minutes or something like that, bridging the third and fourth quarter, was a backbreaker. I thought, to me, that was an opportunity. If you could have gotten off the field somewhere in there, that you could have helped your offense. That could have potentially been an opportunity to steal a win as that game went on. So I was disappointed with the fact that he could not scheme up something to get that defense off the field. Now, part of it wasn't his fault, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about Derek Barnett. That stupid boneheaded flag when they had a fumble go out of bounds was critical to that drive continuing. Then, I thought it was an unfortunate call, but this team has yet to force a turnover. It looked like they had one. A penalty took that away as well. I need to see his defense come up with some turnovers. They've got to start giving their offense a bit of a short field. They have to give them a shot in the arm when they're behind like that and say, hey, we got the ball back. Now go do something with it. So there's some things from Gannon I still need to see. Loved game 1, game 2, not as much. It's just 2 games. I believe that Gannon's going to show us some good stuff down the line. I do like the way he adjusted to things in the first game. Didn't like the fact that he wasn't able to overcome the chess match in game 2. We'll have to see what happens against Dallas because this one is obviously going to be a huge game for him defensively.
Yeah, you mentioned Barnett, and obviously Barnett had the big penalty there. But, this seems to be happening a lot. I think I read from Zach Berman he has 6 unnecessary roughness penalties and 2 roughing the passer penalties. So that's 8 15-yard penalties from Derek Barnett. The problem is now with Brandon Graham out, you really don't have a lot of answers to discipline him.
Yeah, no, you don't. And look, he's in a year he's got to show something. This is his time to try to get paid. And this is not the memory or the lasting impression you want to try to put on the coaching staff or the front office here. It's been a problem with him, and he has had these back-breaking killer penalties. When you've got that feeling that something's about to go your way, that defense was going to get off the field. It was going to be 3rd and 15 for San Francisco. Instead, it was a first down and 15 yards for the Niners as well. that was a killer penalty. And Barnett's got to do better. Now, perhaps because the pressure is going to be on him, I'm sure he's going to have his teammates in his ear all week. I would expect that, yeah, he is going to be the guy who's going to get a lot more snaps as a result of Brandon Graham being out, that he's got to elevate his level of play. It's just what has to happen when it's your turn to step up.
Scott, it was a 15-yard penalty that resulted in a 1st and 10 from the 42 instead of 3rd and 15 from their own 27. And then we know the very next play, what ends up happening is another 15-yard penalty. And at the end of that drive, they end up getting 3 points, which makes it 17-3 with 5:07 left in the game, which means essentially it's a 2-score game with only 5 minutes left. You know, the difference between 14-3 and getting the ball back with, I don't remember what the time was at 3rd down and 15, but possibly 7 minutes left in the game makes that a lot more different. Let's get your opinions now. Brandon Graham is officially out. That was just announced by Nick Sirianni. Brandon Brooks is going on the IR, not done for the year. So let's start with Graham, and what are some of the answers they can try to go with in the Graham spot?
Well, I'm waiting to see, remember they got Ryan Kerrigan in the offseason, and I'm waiting to see him start working his way into the mix a little bit. And I know he's been kind of dealing with some banged up issues of his own through practice. He's on the injury report frequently, but I just don't see him getting a lot of playing time right now. Derek Barnett is the guy who obviously is going to get a shot. I like Josh Sweat a lot, who's been kind of coming on hard, that potentially could get some extra snaps out there. In fact, I'd prefer him over Barnett right now. So those are some of the guys you're going to look for there. As far as Brandon Brooks, huge blow to the offensive line. Look, you knew this offensive line, given its age and its structure, particularly on that side of the line, was not going to go all 17 games without getting nicked up. Good news is that he's not out for the year. The bad news is that obviously he is going to be out for a little while. So I think you're going to see Lander Dickerson. You're going to see that rookie come in there and likely get the chance to play a lot more there. We saw him come into the game after Brooks was out. Let's see what he does when he gets a full week of reps with the ones. He's still coming off that injury from a year ago. So baptism by fire. He's going to be thrown in and be the guy that you're going to see take over that spot for now.
Yeah, I'm interested with the defensive end spot to see if they get creative here. I mean, I look at what Dallas did the other day and took a middle linebacker, Micah Parsons, and said, go play defensive end. You know, you asked Jannard Avery to do a little bit more. You know, do they get a little creative? Does Josh Sweat get an uptick in snaps? I mean, they seem to be keeping him right at that 40% of the snaps here. He just got a huge contract over the weekend. You can't pay someone that kind of money and keep him at 40% of the snaps. You would think they have to at least, unleash him a little bit more.
That's why I would expect him to get more of the snaps, like you said, because they're paying him now, and they want to start getting a return on that investment. And look, I like the way Sweat, he's been trending in the right direction. We talked about Barnett, right? He's kind of been stagnant, and then he drops off because of a stupid play, and then they bench him almost, it seems like, or cut down on his snaps because of that kind of stuff. And then he gets an opportunity, and he makes some plays, and he drops. Sweat's been consistent, and he has been ticking up in the right direction. And then he makes these plays every now and then. He got back he was one of the few guys who got back to Garoppolo yesterday. And that, to me, you need to have that. And that's what Brandon Graham has done on occasion, is get back there and just mess up plays. So I would expect that they need Sweat to do that. So his percentage of snaps is undoubtedly going to go up, and they're going to need to count on him to do some more of that.
Yeah, one option, as you mentioned, Josh Sweat. Derek Barnett, can they get more out of him, as you kind of mentioned and hinted at? This is a contract year for him. They picked up that fifth-year option. You would like to see more. Now, I did see somebody tweet this earlier, that Barnett, through his first 3 seasons, has actually been more productive than Brandon Graham was through his first 3 years. And we knew that Graham got off to a slow start, and then he kind of figured it out. I don't see, Barnett he'll have like one game where he jumps off the page, and then but just the boneheaded plays just tells me that he just doesn't have it in him. This is a guy who was a first-round pick. He broke a lot of Reggie White's records at Tennessee, but he is just not translating to the NFL game.
No, first-round pick when the draft was here in Philly. And, yeah, he is not the biggest problem I have with him is he's been inconsistent. Like you said, he might give you that one game, and you're like, okay, finally, here it comes. And then it drops off, and it's inconsistent. So what you need is consistency. You need to know as a coach what you're going to get from somebody the moment you put them out there. And when he's not producing, And then when he is doing something, it's drawing a flag, and it's a killer penalty. And like you pointed out, it's happened more than once. It's becoming a trend, and that's a problem. And when that's the narrative on you, it makes it very hard to increase your snaps and then also to go pay that guy when it's time to come for a new contract. So at this point, I do not expect Derek Barnett to get a new contract here. And I do not expect him, honestly, to fill in a lot of the void of the space left behind. It'll still be in some packages, but not. I expect Josh Sweat to get the snaps.
All right, over at 97.3 ESPN.com is Grayson's grades. Let's go over one more guy that you gave an A. He was the only guy that got an A for you, and that was Quez Watkins. He had just 2 catches for 117 yards, but it's apparent that Watkins is going to be not a volume guy, but a big part of their offense.
Yeah, and that's what I gave him the A for. Look, you can only do, have an opportunity to show what you can do with the opportunities that you get. And he didn't get many, but when he did cash in on them. And look, with his speed, you'd like to think that he could have gotten in the end zone somehow, but stumbling a little bit and having them get him by the corner, that certainly would have helped. That possession that he got down there on the 91-yard gain ended up having 0 points. But there's other things that I like that Quez does. They do get him involved on the short passing game sometimes so that he can use his burst of speed. I've seen Quez also pull off some decent blocks down the field, and he does a good job at times of doing that. So there's little things that he's doing, and that's a main reason that you're seeing him on the field more than we have in the past, is because he's doing the little things that's earning him the playing time. He's gaining the trust of his quarterback, obviously. To throw that ball from your own end zone and believe that he's going to come down with it in that one-on-one battle, that was huge for Hurts to have that confidence in him. And I think you're only going to start to see more from Watkins grow, and that's what we want to see out of that guy in that role because, look, somebody's got to start taking the pressure off of Devontae Smith. One thing the Niners did yesterday, and it's a very copycat league, is they were doubling up Devontae Smith a lot. And I expect that we're going to see the Cowboys do some of that this week. So other guys like Rager and Watkins, they have to step up. And that's what I liked out of him. In a big play, he came up big and made a play that the Eagles, frankly, needed at that time to flip the field.
For more of the grades, go to 97.3 ESPN.com. Grayson's grades, another edition in the book. The Eagles lose 17-11 against the San Francisco 49ers. Good 49ers team, a winnable game for Philadelphia, but some young mistakes kind of cost them. They'll move on to play Dallas on Monday night, so a late edition of Grayson's grades. He'll be on Tuesday, that means, with Grayson's grades next week. Check out Scott Grayson on Fox 29, and, of course, you can check out Grayson's grades over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Scott Grayson, thanks, man.
All right, thanks, Mike. Have a good day.
There's Scott Grayson's grades. Then every Monday after the Eagles game, or, of course, when they play on Monday night like this coming week, you can get them on Tuesday's edition. Grayson's grades are brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. From Maine to Miami, nobody beats a Boardwalk deal. Online at boardwalkhonda.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash